We see two groups within first century Judaism here, the Pharisees and the Herodians. And these two groups could not possibly be any more different. On the one hand, you had the Pharisees, who were very conservative, very faithful God followers who tried to make their life's goal to follow the commandments and teachings of God as best they could. They certainly didn't always get it right, and certain groups of Pharisees conflict with Jesus a lot. But certain groups of Pharisees also conflicted with certain groups of Pharisees. So that kind of makes sense. On the other hand, you have the Herodians. We know basically nothing about the Herodians other than the fact that they are called Herodians. And if you have good first century ears, you can hear what their party was probably all about just in their name. They seem to be more politically motivated. They were associated with the Herods, who is this long line of dysfunctional family who managed to make themselves kings and ethnarchs and tetrarchs and so on over the region of Judea and Galilee. But they tended to be very much in bed with the Roman Empire, very wealthy, very manipulative politically and financially. So, whoever these Herodians were, they really had no business hanging out with the Pharisees. So, this should automatically give you a red flag. Like when these two guys are getting together, we've got a really big problem. So they approach Jesus, they try to butter him up, and then Jesus, of course, just calls their bluff. But they offer a very, very difficult question. Should you pay taxes to Caesar or not? Now, as you might imagine, people 2,000 years ago did not particularly enjoy paying taxes, just like we don't like paying taxes today. But in the ancient world, the poorest of the poor, which was basically everybody, was taxed incredibly. The Jewish people were a conquered people group living under the boot of the Roman Empire, and the Romans taxed as a way to show their power over their conquered people. So they would tax things like breathing of air. They would tax the people for their protection, which, if that sounds like some kind of extortion mafia kind of move, that's exactly what it is. So the fact that they were taxed by the Romans is this sign that God had not freed his people yet. But then the people also had to pay all of their local taxes too. They had to pay their temple taxes. They had to pay their tithes. And that means that they were at least double taxed. And at least some scholars think that they were triple taxed throughout their lives. So the fact that they're asking about taxation and Caesar, this pagan Roman emperor, means that they are tapping into some incredible amounts of frustration and resentment. So the question they ask Jesus is impossible to answer. Because if Jesus says, no, you don't have to pay taxes to Caesar, well, then he becomes a political threat, and those are easily dispatched. You just take that information to Pontius Pilate. He says, oh, okay, we have another Jewish rebel. We'll just give him the axe or something like that. No, but interestingly enough, at least some of the Pharisees and quite a few of the really more radicalized, subversive Jewish groups would actually be pretty excited about that. Their whole existence is to bring down the Roman Empire. So, on the one hand, Jesus is going to make some people really excited if he says no. But on the other hand, he's going to get in trouble for the wrong reasons. Now, if Jesus says yes, pay the tax to Caesar, then he's going to irritate those faithful Jews who are longing for freedom and rescue from the oppressive Roman Empire. And as we talked about a few sessions ago, this empire is a reminder that these people are still not free. They are still, in some sense, in exile. So either way Jesus answers this question, he is going to be wrong in some important way. Now, Jesus calls them on it in a brilliant way. He asks for the coin, the denarius, that you would use to pay this tax. And he says, first off, whose head is on this? And it would be Caesar Tiberius. Now, coins in the ancient world were the ancient equivalent of political propaganda. They were like the posters and the sponsored ads from some sort of oppressive regime or something like that. They would have the picture of whoever is in charge, but then they would also have inscriptions on these coins. And interestingly enough, while we don't know exactly which copy of the denarius Jesus would have been handed, most likely it would have the common inscriptions ascribed to Caesar Tiberius. Things like Divi Filius, which would mean the son of a god, or Pontifex Maximus, which means high priest. So think about this. And Jesus knew what he was doing. They hand him a coin. All right, you have a picture of Caesar, which, by the way, isn't kosher. That seems an awful lot like a graven image. Even worse, more than likely, this coin would have some kind of inscription saying this guy is the son of a god, he is the high priest, and so on. And then he says, who's on this? Well, they say it's Caesar. All right, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. Now, typically, this passage has been used as justification for why a good citizen should pay his or her taxes. And I agree. If you want to be a good citizen, and part of being a follower of Jesus is being a good citizen, you pay your taxes. That's just what you do. But I think there's something else going on here. Because Jesus says, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. Well, first off, what does Caesar claim to own? The answer is everything, not just land and power or something like that. He was seen as the son of a god, a kind of living god who rules the Roman Empire by some kind of divine right. He claims to be their religious leader, the high priest of all the Greco-Roman pantheon. So he's saying, give to Caesar what is Caesar, give to gods what is God's, but what belongs to God? Everything. He is the all-powerful, all-creator of the universe. So what Jesus does is set up this remarkable tension. On the one hand, Caesar claims to own everything, and he, I guess, owns some things just because that's what God has given him. But on the other hand, give to God what is God's. God literally owns everything. So if you noticed, at the end of this passage, they marvel at Jesus' response, because it's a wild way of picking out the fact that this is a trap and then not stepping into it. He says, sure, basically pay the tax, but don't give him the power he claims to have. You want to be good citizens? You want to not be killed by the Romans? Yeah, this is what you do. This is where we are right now. But don't kid yourself. The state, in all its power and grandeur, does not have what it claims to have. And I think this highlights the really complicated nature of being a good citizen while also following Jesus.